Hey everybody, it is day 22 of my 30-30 video challenge. And did you know that yesterday, April 30th, was National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day? And I'm doing an extension off of that with my guest today, who is James Harbor. And hi, James. And James and I go way back.
Way
We
back.
were co-workers over at Plato PD. James was an officer, of course, and you guys know that I was a 911 dispatcher, and we've known each other a long, long time. And when you have that many years that you work at a job, you're doing what you need to do because you need a paycheck, or you're working because you're working toward a goal. Once you retire, and James retired after how long?
31 and a half years.
Okay, so James retired. He turned in his badge and his gun, his shield, and everything. And once you retire, you still need a purpose, something that brings you joy and that make you happy. So I'm doing real estate. James turned his attention and focus onto something that he may not have maybe originally thought he was going to be doing. But he is are you the executive director?
I'm the president and the founder.
Founder and president of Shiloh's Road to Home. And I'm going to let James explain what it's a 50C3
501c3.
501c3 nonprofit organization, and I'm going to let him take it from here and explain what Shiloh's Road to Home is. And remember, this interview is an offshoot of National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day.
Yes. So it's actually Shiloh's Road to Hope.
Hope.
Because
I'm
we
sorry.
are taking them to a home, but when I started it, I looked at it as we're giving them hope. Because most everything that we deal with comes out of kill shelters.
Okay.
Shiloh, who you probably can't see, but she's laying on the patio back here behind us. She's watching for squirrels. She was in a rural shelter, and they were too full, and they made a 13 dog kill list, and they were going to kill the first 13 that had been there the longest. And she was, sorry about that, and she was number one on that kill list. And I was asked to foster her for a group out of Illinois. Had no clue that dogs from here went out of state. I thought rescues just took dogs here and found them homes. And she was broken when I got her, terrified, wouldn't walk, wouldn't do anything. I had to keep her for 3 weeks, and after about 10 days or 2 weeks, I decided I needed to keep her because she was starting to come out of her shell and couldn't stand the thought of sending her off and her breaking down again. So that's when I realized that these shelters out of state take dogs from Texas, but they pay transporters a lot of times $100 to $150 a crate to transport them. So I thought, what if we could do that and not charge the rescues? And kind of put together a group, and we looked at it and decided that we were going to try to do this on donations only. And if it worked, it worked, and if it didn't, at least we tried. We started, my first transport was about 2 weeks after I retired. It was
Okay, you got
January.
right on the.
I retired December 31st of 2015, and I took a dog back to a rescue in Houston that was up here that had gotten surrendered at a shelter, and that was about the middle of January of 2016. So it didn't take long.
Not long at all.
And since that time, we've done over 4,500 dogs and one cat.
Wow.
We don't normally do cats, but it was a cat that had been missing for 2 years. It was a military family.
Oh.
They had since moved from Georgia or Alabama to Oklahoma. The cat ended up somehow in Illinois. And so since I was up there, the director knew I was coming. Even though we don't work with that shelter, he used to work somewhere else, and he asked if we could take it back to Oklahoma. So we have done one cat.
Fabulous.
But we focus on dogs. I have a motor home that I brought brand new that when I retired had 1,100 miles on it, and it's got 224,000 miles on it today.
So how large is it?
It's a 32-foot motor home.
And how many crates can you fit?
It depends on how big the dogs are.
Okay.
I've had trips where I could take 12 because they were all huge.
Okay.
And then I've had trips where I've taken over 50 because it was a lot of puppies and chihuahuas and little dogs and things like that.
Okay.
So it's a big number that it varies between depending on how big's of course you can get a lot more 10-pound dogs in a car than you can 100-pound dogs.
Right.
So that's kind of how that works. We just put crates all in it, and then when I get through, I break all the crates down and clean them up and stow them away, and then Shiloh usually is with me, and we live in it on the way home and go just take our time getting home and sleep in the RV and cook and eat. We actually bought a second RV about 3 years ago that we got from a rescue that already had about 46,000 miles on it. We put about 100,000 on it, and it was about to fall apart. So we retired it, and we've actually now bought another one that we
Great.
found in 2020, at the end of
Okay.
2020, in Pennsylvania, and we're using it now, and we've already put about 30,000 miles on it.
Okay.
So we do have two motorhomes. There's a lot of groups that transport them in trailers, which you can't see them or hear them. When I have them in the motorhome, I can see most of them and I can hear all of them. So
Okay.
if somebody were to get in distress in the back and I can hear them, I can
No.
pull right over and go figure out what's wrong with them. You know, because puppies sometimes get hung up in the kennels and things
Yeah,
like that.
that's true.
That way we can pull over. There are groups that do this that use just a regular van and they stuff them in, but you can't really get to all the dogs. And that's
Because
not
they're
saying
stacked
that
up.
they're doing it
Yeah.
wrong. It's just not how we do it.
Okay.
We try to treat them like they're our dogs while we have them. We have several rescues down here that we partner with on a regular basis. And we have several outlets in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota that are shelters and rescues. But the shelters there are not like the shelters here. The ones that we work with are all no kill.
Okay.
They'll keep a dog however long they need to. They're good about finding homes for them. But in those upper Midwest states, they don't have the overpopulation that we do. They actually have spay neuter legislation that's actually enforced. And the whole attitude is different up there.
In
It's
other
not
states.
like everybody looks at it as, you know, hey, I can breed my dog and make $500 off puppies or
Right.
something. They don't even think
Look at
about
it that way.
Right. And really, if you breed a dog and you do it right, you're going to need to make a lot more than $500 to cover your costs because all
Correct.
those puppies need to go to the vets and get shots, and
Be
the
fed.
dog, the mama dog, needs to be seen by the vet while she's pregnant. And so, I mean, it's not a lucrative business unless you're running a puppy mill.
Right. Yeah.
So
For in nefarious purposes. But one thing that if you out there didn't realize, that we have overpopulated shelters. Some are no kill, some are. Generally in the county and municipality shelters, there you generally find that they're kill shelters because of space.
most of them are down here for space. There's some of them that try not to be, but they have to every once in a while. There's a very few of them that are just flat, what I call low kill.
Low kill.
You can't really call it no kill because if a dog comes in that's been hit by a car and there's no way to save it, you have to euthanize that dog
Euthanize
because
the
it's best for the dog.
Yeah.
So you're not no kill, you're
Yeah.
just no kill for space. So
Right.
we call it low kill. But I mean, you're talking about they're so overwhelmed. I mean, when Fort Worth Animal Care gets 100 dogs in a day, that's hard not to fill up real
In one
fast.
day. Dallas the same way. Sometimes they'll be on the news saying, "Hey, we've got an influx, and please come down." They'll charge a nominal fee for you to come in. Sometimes they'll even waive it for you to come in and pick up a dog. But when you transport these animals, this is what's the fantastic about what he's doing, is pets are being transported from overpopulated shelters and rescues and taken to areas where they're not allowed of animals to select from. And people want pets, but there's just not any, maybe in these shelters, for people to get. So we just, they get transported and hopefully, in hopes of that pet being adopted and having a better life and go to a wonderful new owner and owner family or whatever. But one thing that I did want to mention, and the reason why I wanted to interview James, is that with Shiloh's Road to Hope being a nonprofit organization, gas is going up. It's very time consuming, and the pets have to be cared for. So I'm going to challenge you out there to donate to Shiloh's Road to Hope. And James, you can tell them how, what format they can donate in. But the website is online, and you can find it there. And how do you accept your donations?
Through our website at shilohsroadtohope.org or .com. We actually have both of them. They go to
Great.
the same place.
Okay.
There's donate links on there that will take you to PayPal. So you can donate that way if you want to do it electronically. There's also my address is on there. We take checks. If somebody wants to mail one to the house, we'll take it and go put it in the bank. You can also sign up for Amazon Smile and select us as your charity, or Tom Thumb and Kroger if you're here local and select us as your charity. We get small amounts from them, but every dollar buys gas. Everybody that makes a donation to us gets a receipt. It doesn't matter if it's $10 or $10,000. You get a letter with a, and it may be emailed if I have your email, but you get a receipt because we are very open about our books.
Okay.
I had a man call me last year that actually made about 5,000 in donations finally last year because he wanted to see our books, and I just sent him the spreadsheets with all our expenses.
And you put them online, don't you? Aren't they online?
They are. Our IRS forms are actually online.
Okay.
We were still at that point able to do the postcard, which doesn't have the actual numbers.
Yeah.
So I just sent him the spreadsheet with all of our expenses. You mentioned gas. We used to could go to Wisconsin and back for about $1,000. That includes meals, lodging, everything. The last trip I made up there, I spent $1,200 in gas.
Just gas alone.
The gas that used to cost us about $650, $700 a trip is now costing us $1,100 to $1,200, and it's actually gone up more since that last trip that we made.
So if gas is becoming, more of an expense, then that takes away from the other part of what you can do. Maybe your trips are being limited because of that,
Right.
or you can't transport as many pets or whatever.
We haven't limited anything yet, but I could see that day coming. We still manage to figure out a way to suck it up and get it done.
Yeah.
But we always need donations, and one other thing we need are people that might be interested in driving.
Oh, great. Okay.
I've got a couple that drives for us occasionally out of Decatur. We're not that hard to work with, but we're pretty demanding when you have our dogs.
Right.
We usually load up in the afternoon, stop in Oklahoma at a rescue up there that we work with that doesn't have a lot of outlets for dogs. We pick up some from her, and then we drive all night.
Okay.
Drop off dogs starting first thing in the morning in Illinois and Wisconsin, and then try to be through about lunchtime. It may sometimes go to 3 or 4 o'clock, but when there's dogs in the vehicle, you stop for gas and to go to the bathroom. If you want to eat, you get something you can eat with one hand while you're driving down the road. You don't go in somewhere and leave the dogs in the car while you're in eating dinner. We're demanding about that kind of stuff and trying to make sure that you maintain that time so that they're in there they're in there for a long time anyway.
Yeah.
People always ask me, well, when they have to go to the bathroom. That's one reason we travel at night, because what I found after doing this several times is at night they all go to sleep because it's dark
and
the
not...
RV's kind of rocking down the road.
Yeah.
And when I stop for gas, a few of them may wake up and get excited because we're stopping. But then when I get back in, they go back to sleep.
Okay.
We go by what they need. If I have one that really is acting like he needs to go out and go to the bathroom, I'll stop and take him out. And then if maybe that excites a couple more, we'll take them out.
Okay.
But I've only had a handful of trips where I've actually had to stop at night because they all sleep.
They sleep. That's
So,
pretty peaceful. Now,
is.
what happens when you've mentioned Illinois and Wisconsin, and those are states where the weather can get inclement out there. So, what happens when when the winter comes? Do you have to just limit your trips?
We just try to watch the weather and try to kind of get out. We've actually only delayed our trip by a day, I think 3 times. A couple of times for snow, and once just because of severe thunderstorms through like Oklahoma, Missouri.
Right.
I don't really want to be caught in a tornado with 35 dogs in my RV.
That could be
because part of me's thinking, well, okay, what do? I feel guilty if I bail out and go run in somewhere and leave all them out here. But if I stay out here with them, we'll all die. I really...
I didn't mean to laugh, but,
we did that job for a long time where you have to laugh about that kind of stuff. That has always, in bad weather, been in my mind. But we don't really delay as much for snow. I've actually been in blizzards. I was in my first ever whiteout in Colorado.
That's
one
not
of my
fun.
first trips.
That's not fun at all.
I had 4 dogs with me, and plus Shiloh, and we spent 24 hours in a Walgreens parking lot in my RV.
Oh my God! And then you're elevated up there too.
Right,
So.
but I had a TV and I had my generator with my heater going.
Good.
And
okay.
The lady that was next door to me in her Tahoe actually came over to use my bathroom a few times because she was there all night too, because they had all the highways shut down. We just try to plug on through. and just slow down. We've had times where it's really delayed us because you can only drive 20 miles an hour for 100 miles. It takes a
Right.
while. But I try to get all through, get delivered, and then we kind of watch on the way home. I've spent, an extra 3 or 4 days in Wisconsin just because the weather got so bad that I didn't want to drive home.
Yeah.
And Shiloh and I would stay in a hotel or something like that just to keep us all safe. So, but we watch it real close, and then we'll delay a day if we need to. But it's only
Yeah.
happened a few times.
Okay. All righty.
So.
So is there anything else that you like to mention that I haven't covered?
Spay and neuter your dogs.
Spay and neuter your dogs, your
Every
pets.
So our focus, we try to help smaller rescues and maybe rural shelters that don't have a lot of help. And we mentioned Fort Worth and Dallas, and they're big and they're overwhelmed, but there's also a lot of rescues that pull from there.
Okay.
We help a couple of shelters that we're the only help they have, pretty much. So every rescue in North Texas that pulls dogs, whether they're keeping them to adopt here or they're trying to send them off somewhere, they need fosters. And you can work with one of your local rescues, and they'll usually, if they're reputable, they'll talk to you about what you've got at home, so that maybe if your dog likes female dogs, they'll work to make sure that they only place a female dog. And if they're trying to get them adopted here, you may have that rescue for 6 months or that foster for 6 months. But like in our case, we have a few fosters. We don't really house dogs. We transport for other people.
Okay.
But some of the rescues we work with, sometimes we try to help them find fosters. But ours will be can you just let this dog live with you for 3 weeks until we head out?
Okay.
That way it gets out of the shelter. Or maybe it's a mom with brand new puppies that you don't want them to get sick in the shelter. And
It
can you
provides some
keep this
relief.
mom and brand new puppies for 5 or 6 weeks until the puppies are strong enough and kind of weaned so that we can load them up and take them all up north. So you can, depending on the rescue, it may be a short-term deal, it may be a long-term deal, but every rescue in North Texas needs fosters.
Okay. Can you
And that
foster?
saves a life. It saves two.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
you're saving the one that you're getting out,
Uh-huh.
but you're opening up a kennel space in the shelter for the other one
For
that's
the
coming in
next one.
behind it. So
Right.
you're saving 2 lives with every one you foster.
I didn't realize that. And one thing we were talking before about specific breeds, and you told me that you're transporting a Cairn Terrier, which is like Toto on the Wizard of Oz. So don't think that you can't get not necessarily maybe a purebred, because one person was a retiring breeder.
Our girl in Oklahoma called us in a panic last week because she had somehow been put in touch with a breeder that was retiring that bred mini schnauzers and had 7 of the parents the breeding dogs that he was wanting to find a place for,
Wow. Tamika Robinson, that's for you, the schnauzers.
which fortunately he reached out to them. A lot of times what these breeders like that do is when they're through, they will take the dog to these breeder auctions where another breeder will buy them and the cycle continues.
Oh my goodness.
This person at least was doing the right thing by finding a home for these dogs. So we have 7 mini schnauzers that we're taking to Wisconsin and Illinois tomorrow that are anywhere from 3 to 7 years old.
So if, let's say someone hears the message about a particular dog, and you know that you're transporting the dog to Wisconsin, can they reach that, is the shelter you're taking it to, correct?
We call them shelters. They call them humane societies,
Okay.
which it's not only different in name, it's a different idea. I mean, a
Okay.
shelter here, most of them are a place to shelter a dog until it may have to be put down because you're full. Up there, it's more that humane society attitude of
Just keeping it
we're
until.
humane and we're trying to find a place for this dog.
Okay, because my quirky brain here is working. You're on your schedule, you're going out tomorrow.
Yes.
So if someone sees or asks or finds out that you're transporting a particular dog to Wisconsin, and they look online and that dog's picture is there, could they adopt that dog?
We will put them in touch with the rescue that's sending
Okay.
it. And
they
normally,
may transport it back if you
right,
go back.
and if it's something that we know about before time, case in point, my brother and sister-in-law have an Airedale Terrier
Oh, wow.
that is full blood.
That's a
that
big dog.
A man paid $4,000 for as a puppy, and then doing the right thing by him, he went to work in the oil field and was going to be gone 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
So he gave her to some friends, and she
Okay.
got out, and when they tracked the chip back to the friend went, "Oh, she barks, we don't want her." She was supposed to go to Wisconsin. My brother and sister-in-law fell in love with her, and
Oh,
and
wow.
our rescue up there let them adopt her.
Okay.
And most of the ones that we work with, I mean, they want the dog to have a home.
Right.
The only time that they're a little hesitant is if maybe they have an adopter waiting that's seen this picture of this dog, that's been waiting for this kind
Yeah.
of dog, and is already in love with that dog, and it's not going to be at the shelter. It's
Yeah.
going home with them as soon as we get out of the RV. So that's happened. That happens a lot, but
Okay.
we've have had them where people will call them and go, "Hey, we got so and so that really wants to adopt this dog," and they're like, "Just let them have it."
Okay. All righty.
So yeah, it's always possible.
This is wonderful. So this has been my longest interview yet, and I'm a dog lover and a former dog mom, and you guys know that I lost Miles during COVID. But this is a wonderful way to save, like James said, save a life, save two lives, save your own life by having a living, breathing soul in the house for you to love. So I urge you all, and I'm challenging you all to donate to Shiloh's Road to Hope so James can get out there and stay on the road and the gas doesn't kill him and they can use those funds really, really proactively. So,
And we are a true nonprofit.
True nonprofit.
Nobody gets paid. I don't
okay.
get paid. In fact, the first year I did this, I had about $12,000 of my own money in it.
yeah, and I know you were using your own money, so.
So we've reached the point now where we don't have to do that. But if we get back to that, if I can afford it, we will. But I get reimbursed. I've never made a dime out of this. Our people that drive don't make anything.
Okay.
I've had people ask me how much we pay them to drive, and I tell them nothing.
Nothing.
We'll
You're going to do
reimburse
it.
you.
You're going to volunteer. That's it.
So that's one reason we have a little harder time than others finding drivers, because we don't pay them.
Yeah.
We reimburse you, and we're generous with our reimbursements, but we're not paying you money to do this.
Now, is there any, can they drive for you just off of their driver's license if they have the
Right.
experience with a motorhome? Okay. All
Right.
Just wanted to make sure they didn't need a CDL or something.
And even with that, we've got some people. I've got a retired firefighter that's driven for us a
Okay.
couple of trips. That's
Great.
gone with me on a couple of trips, and she's also driven on her own a couple of trips in our RV with one of her friends, where she ends up driving. She's driving fire truck. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So she drives the whole time, but the friend is there to help with the dogs and loading and unloading. and
Okay,
keeping
while
them.
she's driving.
And my neighbor decided now's a good
The
time
neighbor
to mow
is
the yard.
cutting the grass. It's Sunday, and they're getting it in, and Shiloh's taking a nap here. I'm going to tilt the camera so you guys can see her.
Shiloh.
But the
Where'd you
neighbor's
go? Right here.
lawnmower woke her up.
Here.
So there she is.
She's still
She's
kind
fooling
of
around, yeah. So
There
thank
she
you
is.
again for watching. Shiloh is peeking out. There she is.
Good girl.
So she's the reason for all of this. So
She started it all.
it's all for her. But again, day 23 of the 30/30 challenge. Donate to Shiloh's Road to Hope.org. And if you guys have any questions for James after this, post it in the comments and we'll get anything answered that you need. But again, as always, have a great day.